Welcome back to my YouTube channel, as we dive into one of the most iconic, beloved, and widely collected coins in American numismatic history, the Washington quarter dollar, a coin that carries not only monetary value but also deep patriotic symbolism, historical importance, and a fascinating evolution through design changes, metal compositions, minting technologies, and collectible rarities that have captivated collectors for nearly a century, beginning with its introduction in 1932 to commemorate the 200th birthday of George Washington, a founding figure of the United States whose leadership during the American Revolution and his role as the first president made him the perfect figure to honor on a coin. And as we explore this legendary quarter, we uncover a story that intertwines art, politics, public opinion, and the United States Mint's effort to modernize coinage during a period of national pride, because the Washington quarter was never originally intended to become a permanent circulating coin but was instead planned as a commemorative issue. Yet the design became so popular with the public that it replaced the standing Liberty quarter entirely, marking the beginning of a new era in American coin designs. And as we look at sculptor John Flanagan's portrait of Washington, chosen despite competition from Laura Garden Fraser's acclaimed design, we find decades of debate among collectors about artistic merit, representation of Washington's likeness, and the politics behind the selection process. But regardless of these controversies, the coin quickly cemented itself as a favorite in everyday commerce and coin collecting, entering circulation during the Great Depression and becoming a reliable and recognizable denomination for millions of Americans during economic hardship, wartime spending, and post-war prosperity. And when we turn the coin over to examine the reverse, we see the powerful heraldic eagle perched with wings spread, clutching arrows of strength and an olive branch of peace, a symbol that remained unchanged until 1999, reflecting America's identity throughout generations. And during the early years of production from 1932 through 1964, the quarter was struck in 90% silver, making these early dates incredibly popular today for both collectors and silver stackers, especially high-grade examples that survived without the heavy wear that most circulated coins endured. And as silver prices rose and the United States faced rising demand for coinage, the Mint made the historic transition to clad copper-nickel composition in 1965, marking the end of an era and creating a divide between silver-era collectors and modern-issue enthusiasts, while also laying the foundation for some of the most fascinating era coins in the series. And throughout this long journey, the Washington quarter has continued to evolve, from the original eagle reverse to the bicentennial design of 1976 featuring the colonial drummer, followed by the groundbreaking state quarter program of 1999 to 2008 that reinvigorated public interest in coin collecting by celebrating each of the 50 states with unique reverse designs, and later the territories' quarters, America the Beautiful series, and the Washington crossing the Delaware reverse, each representing a new chapter in American history and artistry. Yet at the heart of this long legacy remains the original 1932 Washington quarter, a symbol of national pride that continues to inspire collectors as they search for key dates, sharp strikes, rare varieties, and hidden treasures tucked away in pocket change. And as we journey deeper into this coin's origins, production challenges, minting details, and historical impact, we uncover the true depth behind what might seem like an ordinary quarter but is in reality a masterpiece of American coinage that continues to grow in significance with every passing year. As we continue exploring the powerful legacy of the Washington quarter, the story deepens into the artistic process, legislative decisions, and historical conditions that shaped the coin into the masterpiece we recognize today, beginning with the Commission of Fine Arts' original intention to honor George Washington through a commemorative half-dollar rather than a circulating quarter, an idea proposed to celebrate the bicentennial of Washington's birth in 1932, yet due to complications in Congress and disagreements about design choices, the coin was transformed into what would become the permanent successor to the standing Liberty quarter, marking one of the most dramatic transitions in U.S. coinage history. And the competition for the coin's design became a historic numismatic event when dozens of artists submitted their interpretations of Washington's portrait. But among all the entries, the strongest contenders were John Flanagan and Laura Garden Fraser, whose design was favored by the commission yet bypassed by the Treasury Secretary in favor of Flanagan's submission, creating a controversy that still resonates with collectors and historians who argue that Fraser's design was more elegant and dignified. Yet despite these debates, Flanagan's portrait became the officially chosen one and was adapted for circulation with modifications to fit dye production standards, including adjustments to Washington's hair, cheek, and profile to improve durability in striking. And once the coin entered circulation, Americans quickly embraced it, partly because Washington was such a universally respected figure and partly because the coin's clean, bold design made it instantly recognizable in everyday transactions, especially during the turbulent years of the Great Depression when money carried more emotional weight and practical significance than ever before. And as the country navigated economic hardship, war, and rapid industrial growth, the Washington Quarter remained a constant symbol of stability, passing from hand to hand, from generation to generation, becoming part of the American experience, and those early 90% silver issues from the 1930s through 1964 not only circulated widely but also became the backbone of many young collectors' first coin collections, especially during the post-war boom when coin collecting exploded in popularity, and the quarter's design, though simple at first glance, became a canvas of deeper symbolism with the eagle on the reverse representing strength, courage, and national unity, while the olive branches represented peace, creating a balance that mirrored Washington's own leadership style as both a military commander and a man who aspired toward peace and democracy. And throughout the decades the mint refined the details of the design through minor hub changes, die polishing, and adjustments in relief, meaning that even small differences between years can represent entirely distinct varieties. Prized by collectors today, from double dies to repunched mint marks to overpolished eagles with missing feathers, each tiny change adding layers of complexity and intrigue to the series. And as America moved into the 1960s, the rising cost of silver forced the mint to rethink coinage materials, eventually ending the silver era in 1964 and beginning a new chapter with clad quarters starting in 1965, a shift that created one of the most defining moments in modern U.S. coin history because it not only changed the intrinsic value of the coins but also reshaped the way collectors viewed modern issues, creating a split between those who favored the precious metal feel of older coins and those who embraced the modern clad composition. And yet the Washington Quarter continued to thrive, remaining durable, functional, and iconic throughout decades of circulation, and eventually inspiring the historic state quarter program that brought millions of new collectors into the hobby beginning in 1999, making it one of the most successful coin programs ever launched by the United States Mint. And though countless special editions, commemoratives, and redesigns followed, from the state quarters to the America the Beautiful quarters and more, the foundation of all these designs remains rooted in the original Washington Quarter that began in 1932. A coin whose journey from a bicentennial tribute to a nationwide phenomenon reflects the enduring respect Americans hold for George Washington and the timeless influence of classic coin design in shaping cultural identity and national pride across generations. From here, the story of the Washington Quarter expands into the realm of rare dates, hidden varieties, minting anomalies, and the subtle die characteristics that transform an ordinary 25-cent coin into a treasure capable of surprising even seasoned collectors. And as we dive into these deeper layers, we begin by exploring the earliest years of production in 1932, when the Washington Quarter first entered circulation at the Philadelphia and Denver mints while the San Francisco mint struck significantly fewer coins, creating one of the most famous key dates in the entire series, the 1932s. A coin with a notably low mintage that has become a foundational rarity eagerly sought after by collectors across all levels. And what makes it especially intriguing is that despite its low mintage it circulated heavily during the Great Depression, meaning finding a high-grade example today is a true prize as many show wear, cleaning, or damage from decades of use, and its counterpart, the 1932D, forms the legendary pair of early rarities, not only because of its low mintage but because of the die characteristics unique to early Denver mint production, including softer strikes and subtle differences in detail that make certain specimens more desirable than others, especially those struck with fresh dies that capture clearer features in Washington's hair and the eagle's wings. And collectors often search for signs of original mint luster, sharp denticle detail, and absence of bag marks to classify a gem example, and the challenge of finding these coins uncirculated adds to the thrill of collecting them, making these two first-year issues essential keys in any complete Washington Quarter collection. But the quest doesn't end with the 1932 key dates because the years that followed introduced new complexities such as the high-grade 1934 and 1934D, which are known for varieties including the famous heavy motto and light motto types created by differences in hub preparation, causing the motto "In God We Trust" to appear subtly different in thickness and clarity, and collectors often examine these details under magnification to determine which variety they possess, adding excitement to even ordinary-looking coins. And as the 1930s progressed, the mint adjusted relief levels and die preparations, creating varieties that sparked decades of discussion, while also producing the scarce 1936D that becomes much rarer in high grades due to weaker strikes typical of Denver mint production in that era. And the 1940s brought wartime metal demands, die wear, and increased production, resulting in numerous repunched mint marks on coins like the 1943S and 1944D, as mint workers manually punched mint marks into dies, often causing doubled or tripled impressions that now fascinate variety collectors. And these varieties are treasured not only for rarity but for the story they tell about the minting process before modern automated techniques eliminated manual mint mark punching, and as the series moved into the 1950s and early 1960s, production expanded significantly to meet the growing coin demand of a booming American economy, resulting in billions of Washington quarters entering circulation, yet high-grade examples from these years still hold strong value due to poor storage conditions, heavy use, and the effects of time on silver coins which tone, tarnish, and scratch more easily than many collectors expect. But among these later silver issues, the 1950D and 1950S stand out for their well-known strike weakness, making sharply struck examples prized by specialists, and the 1950S over S variety, created through repunching errors, remains one of the most famous mid-series varieties that collectors chase, symbolizing the rich tapestry of errors and discoveries hidden throughout the Washington Quarter series. And as we transition into the historic year of 1964, we confront the final chapter of the Silver Quarter era, a year so heavily hoarded by Americans that the mint struggled to keep circulation supplied, leading to massive mintages that ironically still allow certain high-grade examples to command tremendous prices when perfectly preserved, especially those graded at the top of population charts where only a few flawless examples exist, and this transition year marks the boundary between silver and clad compositions, pushing collectors to seek out the best-preserved examples before the historic shift of 1965, a year that created one of the most dramatic and highly studied modern rarities in all of American coinage, the 1965 silver planchet era quarter, an accidental relic of the silver era struck on leftover 90% silver planchets that were never meant to be used. And these rare transitional errors are so coveted because they bridge two eras and represent one of the greatest discoveries made through careful weighing and metal testing. And as we journey deeper into rarities, mint mistakes, and hidden treasures, we discover that the Washington Quarter is far richer, more complex, and far more rewarding than most people realize, especially when you know where to look, what details to examine, and which subtle characteristics transform a basic pocket quarter into a high-value collectible that can shock even the most experienced numismatists. Diving even deeper into the world of Washington Quarter dollar rarities and errors, this portion uncovers some of the most astonishing discoveries hiding within one of America's most widely circulated coins, and collectors continue to be amazed by how many surprising varieties emerge when you look closely at different dates, mint marks, compositions, strike types, die conditions, and transitional issues. Beginning with the extremely desirable 1943 S double die obverse quarter, where the doubling on the motto and the profile of Washington shows prominent separation lines that make the coin unmistakable under magnification, and because so few were produced before the defective die was corrected, high-grade examples can reach several $1,000s at auction, followed by the iconic 1934 double die quarter, easily recognized by dramatic doubling in the motto, "In God We Trust," which becomes more visible in mid to high grades and has reached strong five-figure prices when collectors aggressively compete. And then moving into the Philadelphia Mint's 1942 proof issues, where several cameo and deep cameo varieties exist due to early die polishing practices that were inconsistent, meaning only the earliest strikes from certain dies display strong frosting on Washington's bust with deeply mirrored fields, and these are not only visually beautiful but command impressive premiums, especially in PR 67 and above. Next we come to the mysterious 1941 S large S and small s mint mark varieties, produced because the mint used multiple punches that year, with the large S examples being scarcer in high grades, and registry set collectors regularly pay substantial premiums to secure the best examples, while the 1936 satin proof quarter remains one of the most legendary early proof issues, struck with a unique finish that lacks the deep mirrors of later proofs, instead featuring a soft, velvety texture across the surfaces, and because so few remain in pristine condition, top-tier examples are some of the most coveted early 20th century proofs. Shifting to post-war quarters, the 1950 S over S repunched mint mark is another key variety, where the original S mint mark was lightly struck and corrected by punching another S directly over it, creating noticeable layering that collectors love, and high-grade versions sell for significant premiums. While the 1956 Type B reverse quarter, created when the mint mistakenly used a proof reverse die for regular business strikes, shows sharper feather details and a different spacing between the letters in E pluribus unum, making it a must-have variety that can cross the $1,000 threshold in high MS condition. Now moving into the clad era, transitional errors become extremely valuable, especially around 1965 when the mint switched from 90% silver to copper-nickel. And among the rarest of these is the 1965 silver planchet quarter, a coin that should not exist because silver blanks were supposed to be used up by the end of 1964, yet a few were left in the presses and struck the following year, and whenever one appears it sells for tens of thousands of dollars because collectors recognize the extraordinary nature of this mistake, with the most famous example bringing more than $7,000 even in circulated grade, and far more in authenticated high-grade examples. Then we encounter the incredible 1970 S-proof quarter struck on a 1941 Canadian silver quarter, which is one of the most bizarre and extremely rare mint errors ever documented, combining two different nations' coinage and resulting in an ultra-valuable rarity that is sold for over $40,000 due to its historical uniqueness. Continuing through the 1970s, the 1976 bicentennial quarter also brings several unusual varieties, including double dies, wrong planchet strikes, and off-center strikes. And because the bicentennial design was minted in enormous quantities, these errors stand out dramatically and are always popular. Especially in silver 40% composition from the special collector sets. Entering the 1980s, one of the most talked about modern errors is the 1983 quarter struck on a copper planchet, which should not be possible since cents and quarters are made of different metals, yet a wrong blank entered the quarter press, resulting in a lightweight reddish-toned coin that is instantly recognizable and highly valuable. And another major discovery from the same decade is the 1982 P no mint mark quarter, a result of the mint accidentally leaving the mint mark off the working die, and because most collectors at the time were not checking their change, high-grade specimens have become extremely expensive and are considered essential for serious modern quarter collections. Moving ahead, the 1990s gave rise to the 1999 Delaware spitting horse quarter, created by a die crack that runs from the horse's mouth toward the edge of the coin, a whimsical error that became incredibly popular among the public and collectors alike, and more severe die cracks, cuds, and shattered dies from various states in the 50-state quarters program continue to be actively hunted, especially dramatic cuds that cover large parts of the reverse. And then finally we enter the modern era where the United States Mint's newest programs, including the America the Beautiful quarters and American Women quarters, have produced fresh opportunities for errors, including double dies, struck-through grease errors, clipped planchets, and off-metal strikes, and collectors now know to examine new rolls closely because dramatic modern errors have recently sold for hundreds or even thousands, proving that even today the Washington Quarter Series remains one of the richest hunting grounds for rare, valuable, and visually striking coins. Continuing more than 90 years of history filled with unexpected discoveries and breathtaking numismatic treasures, making this series endlessly exciting for collectors who understand that hidden gems can appear anywhere, from old collections to pocket change, if you simply know what to look for. Continuing this deep exploration of the Washington quarter dollar, we now move into the final stretch of this long historical and numismatic journey, focusing on how this coin evolved through different eras of American coin production, why certain pieces became symbols of craftsmanship, scarcity, or national change, and how the quarter transformed from a simple circulating coin into one of the most studied, most collected, and most beloved coin series in the United States, beginning with a period from the mid-20th century onward when economic pressures, technological improvements, artistic considerations, and shifting public interests all shaped the way these coins were designed and produced, and starting with the rising demand for coinage during the post-World War II economy, the Mint expanded production significantly, increasing output at Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, which led to more consistent strike quality in some years but also introduced new varieties and errors as dies wore down faster, and collectors today carefully analyze the strike sharpness on coins from the 1950s and early 1960s to identify the strongest strikes, particularly on quarters from Denver where many dies were pushed beyond their intended limits, resulting in weak details on the hair strands and eagle feathers. Meanwhile, the rising price of silver became a growing concern throughout the early 1960s, and by 1964 the Mint faced unprecedented coin shortages because people were hoarding silver coins, so Congress made one of the most important decisions in quarter dollar history. The shift from 90% silver to copper-nickel-clad alloy in 1965, a move that permanently changed the appearance, sound, weight, and composition of the quarter, and collectors today view this transition as one of the most critical dividing lines in the series, marking the end of the classic silver era and the beginning of the modern clad era. But this transition also produced some of the most valuable transitional errors because leftover silver planchets were accidentally fed into presses meant for clad quarters, creating the legendary 1965 silver quarter mistakes that collectors still hunt feverishly. Moving forward, the 1970s represented a time of stabilization where the clad quarter became the nation's everyday workhorse coin, circulating heavily and wearing down quickly. So high-grade survivors from this decade, especially in MS66 and above, are more elusive than many people expect, and collectors pay large premiums for well-struck, clean examples from the early clad years, particularly those with full drum lines or crisp eagle feathers that rarely appear on business strikes from that era, and at the same time the United States Mint experimented with new hub designs and polishing techniques, which resulted in contrasts between early strike and late strike quarters that modern specialists closely study. Then stepping into the 1980s and early 1990s, technology continued improving with computer-aided die manufacture, but the sheer number of coins needed by the growing population meant the mint pushed production into the hundreds of millions and even billions per year, leading to extremely high mintages that filled circulation but also introduced a wide range of new die cracks, machine doubling, misaligned strikes, and repunched mint marks on certain dates. And serious collectors learned that high mintages do not mean all coins are common, because true high-grade examples from this period, especially with full luster, clean surfaces, and sharp details, remain surprisingly scarce and command strong prices at major auctions. Then in 1999 everything changed when the United States Mint launched one of the most ambitious and influential coin programs in history. The 50-state quarters program, which reignited national interest in coin collecting, brought millions of new collectors into the hobby, and turned the Washington quarter into a cultural phenomenon as each state's unique design appeared, creating not just artistic variety but also countless new varieties and errors because of the massive production volumes, and these include double dies, die chips, cuds, off-center strikes, and more, all of which collectors eagerly search for. And after the State Quarter Series ended in 2008, the Mint continued the momentum with the District of Columbia and U.S. Territories quarters in 2009, followed by the America the Beautiful National Parks quarters from 2010 to 2021, each featuring detailed scenic designs that pushed the limits of die engraving, and some of these issues have already gained cult followings due to key low mintage dates like the 2012 S Circulation Strike quarters and the 2019 W West Point quarters that were released into circulation in extremely limited numbers to spark collector excitement, making them instant modern treasures. And as the quarter continued evolving, new series such as the American Women quarters, beginning in 2022, introduced fresh portraiture, new reverse themes, and renewed interest in modern rarities, proving that the Washington quarter dollar legacy is not one single story but a continuous timeline stretching from 1932 to the present, filled with artistry, mistakes, innovations, and discoveries, and this long evolution shows why collectors worldwide remain captivated by this iconic coin, always aware that whether silver or clad, proof or business strike, early or modern, the Washington quarter has an endless supply of history, value, and excitement waiting to be uncovered. Bringing this long journey to its final chapter, the Washington quarter dollar continues to stand as one of the most fascinating and rewarding coins for collectors, not only because of its long production history but also because of the incredible spectrum of rarities, varieties, minting errors, condition levels, and special issues that have appeared over more than 9 decades. And to truly understand why certain Washington quarters have risen to legendary status, collectors must look deeper into how specific minting circumstances, metal compositions, die preparation issues, and historical events affected each year's production, starting with the early silver years where low mintage pieces, remarkably well-struck examples, and exceptionally preserved coins became the foundations of high-value trophies, such as the rare 1932D and 1932S pieces that were produced in remarkably low quantities, and because they represent the first year of issue and the lowest mintages in the entire series, they have become icons that consistently appear in major auctions, with top-grade examples selling for tens of thousands of dollars. At the same time, collectors search for the elusive double-die obverse varieties from the 1930s and 1940s, the repunched mint marks on certain San Francisco issues, and the rare high-grade full-detail coins with clear eagle feathering, all of which are difficult to find due to wear, circulation, and soft strikes of the era. And then moving into the post-war years, scarcity shifts from low mintages to condition rarity, as heavily circulated quarters from the 1950s and early 1960s make true gem uncirculated survivors extremely valuable, with MS-67 and MS-68 pieces from this period often setting record prices because their clean surfaces, strong details, and brilliant luster are so difficult to obtain, especially for dates where die fatigue was common. When the nation transitioned away from silver in 1965, errors exploded in number and interest, including the legendary transitional 1965 silver quarter, which should not exist but does because leftover silver planchets accidentally made their way into production lines, and these rare pieces, along with wrong planchet errors, broad strikes, double-struck coins, and off-center pieces, have become standout discoveries that collectors dream of finding in old rolls and inherited collections. Then as production surged through the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s, high mintages masked the fact that truly pristine examples are incredibly hard to locate, especially for years where weak strikes and heavy die usage dominated, and this creates modern sleepers that experts pay close attention to, particularly quarters with brilliant, undisturbed mint luster and sharp drumlines that separate exceptional coins from ordinary circulation pieces. Then the year 1999 transformed the entire hobby when the state quarter program launched, creating an environment where billions of coins flowed every year, yet. Even within this massive output, rare varieties like the extra leaf Wisconsin quarter, the various double die obverse and reverses, missing clad layer errors, broad strikes, and misaligned dies became instant collector favorites, commanding high prices and generating national media attention. And as the program continued, collectors began hunting for top pop business strike coins that had no marks, no haze, no softness in detail, and these highest graded examples from the state series often realized thousands of dollars at auction. The 2009 Territories quarters added low mintage modern issues that became instant keys, followed by the National Park quarters that introduced the landmark 2019 and 2020 West Point mint-marked circulation strikes, which quickly became some of the most desirable modern Washington quarters ever released because they were intentionally seeded into circulation in small quantities, creating a treasure hunt appeal that reinvigorated collectors nationwide, and pristine examples of these W-mint pieces continue to hold strong premiums. The newest generation of quarters brings even more artistic designs, modern engraving technology, and new collecting opportunities, proving that the Washington quarter is not merely a coin but a living timeline that evolves with every decade, offering collectors new key dates, new undervalued sleepers, new errors, and new artistic masterpieces to explore. And as this long-form journey through its history, varieties, and hidden values comes to a close, the Washington quarter stands as a true icon of American coinage, a coin that began as a tribute, transformed through silver, clad, minting innovations, national programs, circulating rarities, and modern artistry, and continues to inspire collectors with every roll, every album, every discovery, and every hidden treasure waiting to be found, shaping a story that is far from over and ensuring that this remarkable coin will always carry historical weight, financial value, and enduring fascination for generations of collectors to come. Thanks for watching.